Hi everyone, it's Solvi, and today we are going to be drawing a movie poster for the movie Labyrinth. I loved this movie when I was a kid. I had the soundtrack downloaded on a little MP3 player and I would listen to it all the time. And the masquerade ball scene in particular really had an impact on me as a kid. I've wanted to draw it for forever, and now I finally am. Anyways, just like always, I'm starting off with a sketch, and you can see that I've started laying down some black and white values. This helps make sure that the characters are distinct from the background and that all of the elements are reading clearly before you add color. I don't always do this step, but for this piece I thought it would be a good idea since I have a lot of different background elements, again just to make sure everything reads clearly. And it's supposed to help make the colors easier, but I had such a time with the colors on this piece, and here's why. You can see through all the horrible flashing that I've been playing around a lot with different layer modes, etc., and I ended up settling on this color scheme here. But here's the thing. This color scheme is gorgeous. The orange and blue and pink all works really nice together and creates this really dreamy 80s surreal atmosphere, but it's not super accurate to the color scheme of the movie. The movie has a lot more browns and greens and golds, and I really went back and forth for a while about whether or not I wanted to stick with this color scheme or if I wanted to start over and go with something that was more true to the movie. Ultimately though, I decided to stick with this color scheme because every time, as you can see here, that I tried playing around with more greens and yellows, it just didn't look as good. And I don't know, maybe I'm being silly about needing the movie poster to match the color palette of the movie. It is something that I typically like to do, but it just didn't happen this time, sorry guys. Anyways, you can see that I have just started rendering in the characters and the faces. I'm referencing images of both Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie off screen so that I can get an accurate likeness. And I loved drawing this ball gown so much. I really was obsessed with this whole outfit and this whole scene when I was a kid. I wish that I was Sarah in the ballroom scene. It's just so fabulous. On a similar note, you can see that I've been putting off rendering David Bowie's face because he was hugely important to me as a kid, and this is the first time I've ever drawn him. But even though I did put it off, his face turned out fine, so I was worried for nothing. You can see that I've also started sharpening and fine-tuning the labyrinth in the background. And for that, as well as some elements of the border, I've turned on the drawing assist function in Procreate. And I'm using the grid mode, which means that all of the lines I draw while drawing assist is on are going to be perfectly straight, and that's what's helping me get those perfect little 90-degree angles and everything for the labyrinth. Drawing assist is a really handy tool. You can also use that for symmetry, so if you wanted to do a perfectly symmetrical background or face or whatever, drawing assist is a great tool for that as well. You can also see in this piece that I've had a lot of fun playing around with the Procreate glitter brush featured prominently on Sarah's ball gown, as well as some different jewelry and crystal brushes laid over her outfit and Jareth's outfit, which did a really nice job of creating a lot of texture and detail without it being as much work to do by hand, obviously. And you can see that I've also played around with a couple of different overlays in this piece. The most obvious one being this image of a cathedral that I have laid over the whole piece. It's giving the labyrinth itself a lot of nice architectural detail and texture. Now, playing around with overlays and collage elements is something that I like to do a lot in my work. And I source these images from a couple of different places if you are ever curious about where I get these images or if you wanted to try it in your own work. This particular cathedral image is sourced from a physical book that I have that is actually full of vintage illustrations and woodcuts and things that are meant to be used specifically for collage. There are a lot of really cool physical books that are like this that are meant to be cut up and reused and repurposed, or in this case scanned and then overlaid digitally. Or if you're looking online, then a really good website to use for that is going to be unsplash.com. You can actually search by copyright usage on that site, so if I'm looking for a specific thing, I will often go to Unsplash for an image. And of course, you can always use photographs that you took yourself because you own the copyright to those images. Anyways, copyright laws and collage elements aside, while I was blabbering, I finished detailing the goblin castle and the goblin city in the background. I will say I tried really hard, but I just could not squeeze any actual goblins into this composition. It was already pretty crowded with the labyrinth and the city and everything, so I'm sorry. There should be some goblins in there, they just didn't make it. But I am really happy with how the silhouette of the city turned out in the background. I think it blended really nicely with that collage overlay. And I ended up using a pretty similar technique for the border that I'm working on now. Because the labyrinth and the characters themselves ended up so textured, I wanted the border to have a similar feel. It looks almost like gilded metal at the end, which I think is really cool. And then a little challenge that I left for myself was doing the title text by hand. I almost always try to avoid doing this, but I really wanted that specific L and that specific Y, so ultimately I decided this time I was just gonna have to draw it in myself. I think it turned out fun, and I think that Labyrinth deserved some really fancy decorative script for the title. Then I pulled the image into Photoshop to do the rest of the text. I was actually planning on using Procreate, but they did not have any good fantasy fonts, and I knew I had this font downloaded into Photoshop, so I ended up just pulling the image. It is what it is. You may be wondering why I always use Photoshop for text and not Illustrator, and that is because I hate using Illustrator. I just don't like it. I know it's technically a better program for text, but man, does it just make me mad. I don't know. It's just not for me. Anyways, you can see that I'm playing around just a little bit with the layout and composition of the text still. As always, making those little fiddly last-minute adjustments and everything. But after that, the piece is all done. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and thanks again so much for watching.